don't forget about what the most important things in your life are as you're trying to grow your business. Don't lose sight of those things. So everything else you can grow, everything else you can build, 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 but don't lose sight of the things that are most important to you or you will lose them.
All right, and welcome to the Levels Podcast. Hi, I'm Dr. Robbie Woelkers, and today I have Dr. Cameron Dennis, owner of Back on Track Physical Therapy, which is all the way up in Lima, Ohio, which is awesome. And he's going to bring us some knowledge today about opening up another location, but also trying to get things in place from, his first location to get everything squared away to get him ready to open up a second location, which is awesome. On the Levels Podcast, we bring owners on who have been through all different levels from startup to multi-locations and to owners that are just trying to get out of treatment. Cameron has a little bit of it all today. Cameron, welcome today. Pleasure to meet you, man, on the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks, man. I like your setup, by the way. I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, I got to up my game a little bit behind me. So
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I'm not sure what that is. Was that a TV back there?
Yeah, it looks like a fish scale or something, but yeah, it's my little whiteboard. Why I have a
Oh,
code now, everybody knows my passcode. It's just there, and it's how I doodle and how I write on it and stuff like that. But and then sometimes every now and then you go to use it and it doesn't have the internet. So
oh, that sounds like technology.
dis-
Yeah,
disruption follows intention. But there you go.
that's
It's
right.
doing its thing now, and it'll be there. So, but yeah, well,
Yeah,
welcome, man.
I should tell you too. It's actually pronounced Lima.
Lima. What did I say? Lima.
Lima. Lima. Well, the one in South America is Lima, right? But
It is.
this
Yeah.
one's more like lima bean. So
Let's go. That is an Ohio thing. They would throw a curveball there.
they
So
would.
not so Lima is what you guys call it. Lima is what they call it. All right.
Yes.
Now we're on the same page, man. Well, I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Oh, The Office.
The office. Yeah. So you can't,
I'm sure you hear that all the time, right?
well, now I do. Yeah. Because before no one really knew where it was. They're like, hey, where are you from? And I said, hey, well, I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania. No clue. But now that the office, people are like, oh, like the office. And I'm like, yeah, like the office. But it's cool, man. It's small towns. So that's kind of where I'm getting to. It's just small towns, rural Ohio. And here you are doing your thing, man. So first thing we'll get into today is, you are looking to open a second location.
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
And for looking to open a second location, like what are some of the things that you're focusing on right now, and what are some of the things that maybe you're a little apprehensive about, or some of the things you're excited about? Just kind of walk us through the weeds a little bit of how you're feeling with that, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's a great question. I've kind of been all over the place with it, to be honest with you, because I'm still kind
Mhm.
of learning the whole process behind it. Luckily, I've had you and Joey to kind of guide me a little bit, but um, the big thing we're doing right now is kind of deciding between rentals, like leasing a space versus purchasing a
Oh,
space.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you, the amount will change depending on where you live, but where we're at, it seems like it's a little bit cheaper than maybe where you guys are at or where maybe some of the bigger cities.
You're at like 1.5 to get any kind of thing
Oh
down
God,
here for
no.
sure.
So around here, there was about a 5,000 square foot space and they were wanting about 6,000 a month,
That was for
which
lease. That was for lease,
that was
correct?
for a lease. That was for
Okay.
a lease. So I would still have to do the build out of that. And so there's still some money that I'd have to invest on top of that, which I wouldn't be getting back, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is one of the downsides. I think it would be quicker because you wouldn't have to deal with necessarily like getting the financing and things like that. But the situation I'm dealing with right now is looking because I am kind of leaning towards purchasing a building just for long-term benefits as well as, I'm putting money into it. I'd
Oh
like to
yeah.
maybe get that money back out of it.
Might want to keep it around a little bit. No, and I love that too, because so many people, first of all, I love that you're even thinking about purchasing a building, because there's a lot of owners out there that have spent millions of dollars on leases and have nothing to show for it.
Mhm.
And by the time they do the build out, by the time they're paying somebody else's mortgage and CAMs and HOA charges and all the things, and then when they go to sell their practice, they sell their practice, but then they have nothing else. There's nothing there. So for you, thinking about like, hey, do I lease? Do I own? Like, what was your deciding factor? Are you 100% like, hey, I want to own if I can own? Or is this more like let me see what that looks like for this clinic? And then maybe the third location is when you own, or what is kind of your order of operation there?
Yeah, so it's a tricky thing because I would like to get it started sooner than later.
Oh, yeah.
Time
Because you got
time is an important
momentum.
element.
Yeah, you got the
Exactly.
momentum
We've
on the
got some
first
momentum.
location.
I'm
Yeah.
feeling motivated.
Yeah.
You know, so things are going really well and it just feels like the right time and with the numbers and everything, it's the right time. It really depends on what's available. and I'm still kind of seeking that out. There's two major towns, cities, I guess, that I've been looking into, and there's really not a lot for sale.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's one of the things I'm running into is that there's not a lot for sale. And a lot of the leases are very high, like in terms of monthly cost, they're very high. While I'm leaning towards purchasing, it really depends on what opportunity is there. And then the other alternative, I suppose, would be to purchase some land and build. But I think that's its own animal, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we had a couple of people do the whole, buy a piece of land and let me go get some contractors and build this thing. But, it's like a year and a half, 2 years all in.
Right.
So
Right.
you got to kind of like future thinking is just like, hey, let me get this thing. If you had 3 or 4 locations and buy some land and build and have some time and you had some cash flow from the other locations, it might make sense. I'm not opposed to it, but at the same time, I had someone at clinic number 2 get land and in open, and it was just, I think for her situation, it was just, there was just a lot of things that went wrong and kind of
Hmm.
really put her in a pickle. And I love what you said earlier. It's like I have motivation right now, so I want to kind of, do something here. She lost a lot of motivation, like through that process of getting the land, doing the build out, and then when they finally were there, the occupancy permit got delayed, and she was doing a grand opening to ramp up, and then they told her that she couldn't because she failed the occupancy, and then that had to bump things back, and she just lost momentum. They're doing fine now and they're in it and it's good, but I think it kind of lost some of that luster heading in. So you're looking
Right.
at leases are high. You're starting to learn that like, hey, if I just went and bought my own thing, it'll probably be even cheaper than leasing. So which is
Right.
interesting. Yeah. So when you're looking at this, is that like self-funding? So are you just looking to just do your down payment and get a mortgage? Is this like buying the whole thing outright? Are you using some of those like 0% down physician loans that are out there? Like what are some of the options that you're seeing there, Cameron?
Yeah. So I've talked to a couple banks. So a couple of them in this area are saying that the lowest that they would do is 20%, but they did refer me to another bank
Okay,
that said
cool.
that they would be able to do about 5%. So 5% is pretty good, as you know.
Oh, five
Um,
percent
I'd be
down. Yeah, yeah.
I'd be really happy with putting 5% down and getting
I mean, when you have banks competing and negotiating against one another, the buyer wins. So that's good, man. Awesome.
right. Because at the end of the day, that's money that I can put towards equipment and making it look the way I'd like to, and all these different things as opposed to the building, and I can just get it rolling. So,
Awesome, man.
um,
So for you then looking at it, so you're going to the banks, you're getting all this information, and then what's the time frame here? So are you trying to get this thing done in like the next 6 months? Or are you trying to be like a year out? Because like, there's some people probably listening to this and they're like, when is kind of a good time to open a second location? So walk us through where you're at with the first. Maxed out, oversubscribed, ready to rock and roll, or does that still have some work to do? And like just kind of like what made you decide now to do a second? I know you said momentum, but what else is kind of showing up for you?
yeah, actually, well, believe it or not, we're hiring another PT. She'll
Let's
be
go, man.
actually,
Awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that'll be
We can
four
cover that
full-time
later. How
PTs.
like you're getting PTs in the middle of nowhere, but that's we'll cover.
Right, right.
So there you go.
Yeah, that's a whole conversation, right? But yeah, so we're real busy. I would say we have periods of oversubscribed, and then we have periods where we're just super busy. I mean,
Mhm.
we're at capacity, right? Max capacity.
Yeah, yeah.
Right now, I would say that we're definitely struggling to find places to put people in terms of on the schedule, and which is why we're trying to hire someone else in
Good problem to
addition. So,
have, but a problem to
right.
have too.
It
Yes.
is. It is a problem. And as you know, but maybe others don't, is that we have a lot of space out here. We're in a large athletic complex, which is the size of what, 6 full-size tennis courts.
It's
So
huge. It's
it's
a big
huge.
facility. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So we can really continue just to build our staff and continue to build a caseload and really continue to integrate into the community and things around here just to further establish ourselves. But just in the meantime, I feel like there are other markets that are really just ripe for the picking,
Okay.
if you get
Yeah,
catch
yeah.
my drift.
No,
So,
and you don't have to ever disclose like where you're looking strategically
mhm.
on this thing. So there's a principle I love to follow. It's like the first mover advantage. And people, and I think me and you could agree that we both make a better burger than McDonald's. Like yeah, I'm not even the bet, but I could go in the backyard, I could fire up the grill, I could make a good burger. People come in like, yo, this is between you and McDonald's, this is better. But like, why do they make more money than us? It's because they were the first ones to kind of systemize fast food and getting this stuff out there. So I'm a big fan of like in marketplaces, it's just like, well, we're kind of the only game in town. Maybe there's a couple PT clinics around you, but it's not like that whole like, it's either feast or famine. Some cities that we are in, we work with clients and there's 14 clinics around one location kind of thing. But for you, you're kind of looking at this thing like, hey, if I could go quick with this, like I could
Mhm.
take up some cities and some territories pretty quickly and have something, to build on over the next couple of years. And then, I don't know your end game here if you're looking to sell or whatever that looks like, which most people should, have that in the back of their minds. Maybe not right now, but it's just like, how do I get this thing in a position to sell? So when you're looking at it, do you see that kind of maybe that first mover advantage in play right now? That if I could go quickly, we could go fast with this thing, and by the time somebody else wants to come in, it might be a little bit too late.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, there's to be quite honest, in Ohio, chiropractic kind of rules.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
There's so many, I can't even tell you. Versus there might be three PT clinics in our town, but there's, eight chiropractors.
Yeah, I'll have to get the data from Joey, but I do believe it's like a 10-to-1 ratio. I think
It's
there's like a
crazy.
couple there's like a couple 100,000 like chiro clinics, and there's like 30, 40 outpatient PTs. 30,
Hmm.
30, 40,000. So it's kind of
Right.
it's kind of an interesting thing when you start looking at it. I don't want to say they're bad. That's not the word I want to look, but they're kind of like trained. People always complain that like I wish PT schools had business like integrated in it. I'm like, I don't, because like, chiropractic did. And now everyone wants to be a solo chiropractic clinic and nobody wants to work for somebody else. Right. So
Right.
they have all these like one chiropractic, one chiro assistant clinics that they pop up, but they can't get to the point, which we'll talk about in a little bit about you, that you are able to go from like you admin first PT, and then, in less than like 16 months, go from like you admin first PT to like 4 or 5 providers now. And then you're out looking at a second location. Kairos just can't, they
Right.
dream of stuff like that, man. They just can't do it. Yeah.
Right. And largely, I think in Ohio, or at least in this area, it's a lot of hospital-based outpatient physical therapy
Oh,
practices.
yeah, yeah.
And so they have sort of a way of doing things that's different than the way that we do things.
So you're
And
cleaning up all the hospital stuff, man. So that people are frustrated going there and getting $300-$400 bills a visit. So they just come see you.
it's
Awesome.
true, we're the alternative,
Yeah.
honestly. And not only for the patients, but for the staff, right? Because they
Interesting.
have to
Yeah.
sort of follow the guidelines from, the head honchos, the CEOs that don't actually treat patients and kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
lay down the law. And then we can come in and be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more like
Mm.
provider friendly. We were kind of referring to how I'm able to get PTs in a small area. Well, that's one reason is that we're able to offer something that they're not.
So what is that? And by the way, guys, like if you like look at Ohio and just look at the middle, like a little bit north middle. Like there's nothing there. Like there might be Columbus and like a couple hours away. There's a couple other cities here and there, but there's literally like nothing there. So you don't have a ton of PT schools by you, correct? There's no PT schools within like an hour or two.
No, well, let's see, there's University of Findlay,
Okay.
and that's definitely the closest one. Ohio State's there, but that's more like an hour and a half or so.
Yeah. Okay. So
Finley's
it's not
more
like you
like,
have like one right next door. Yes.
no, definitely
Even an
not.
hour is
No.
good, but like think about that when you guys went to PT school. Like you're not doing an hour and a half away clinical. Like it's just not happening unless you kind of live in that area. So for you to be able to open, so we're looking at building, possibly owning, possibly leasing, but we're looking at something. And in order to do that, you need to get oversubscribed and you need to hire people at your first location, kind of max this thing out. So how are you hiring people? Like what does that look? Is it your offer? Or are you just giving away like 400K to come work for you? What are you doing, man? Come on.
So there's a couple things I think. Transparency is one.
Okay.
We're
When
extremely
you,
transparent,
yeah,
and
with
and,
the
and
what you offer, or when you say transparent, what does that mean?
transparency in terms of what it will look like when you're here.
Oh,
We're
okay,
not we're not
great.
hiding anything, right? So we're not gonna bring you in with offering all these things and then not be able to provide those things.
Okay. You don't
We're
overpromise, underdeliver. I love that.
right.
Okay.
That's part of it. Also, we're very transparent about why we see patients every 40 minutes. Just the specifics of how we actually run our business. We're very transparent about why, and we explain
Interesting.
sort of how the physical therapy landscape looks overall, how it's changing. We try to help them understand that this is the way things are moving. We're trying to get ahead of it and do things to prevent becoming a mill. We're doing everything that we can so that we don't end up like a lot of these other private practices, which are requiring that they see 2 to 3 patients at a time. And I try to explain it so that they understand where we're coming from. And I think that helps us to build a connection with the providers. They see that I'm giving them everything. Like, here's exactly why we do it this way. Patients like it, the PTs like it. We have a really, really good work-life balance here. We're not going to call you in
Interesting.
to work acute care, on your day off
Sure.
or something
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah. Hospital outpatient. It's just like, hey, by the way, could you come and walk some patients on the weekend that just came in? So
Right.
if you want some overtime, that's fine, but mandatory work, that's a different story for sure. Okay, so you're transparent with, so my mind went, a little bit more towards like benefits and stuff because that's what most people do. Most people are like, hey, like, let's put together like the best package we can. And instead, you're just like, listen, like when you come work for us, we're on this EMR. This is our scheduling. This is that. And when you walk people through all that, you start getting this thing I like to call like that yes momentum, where they're like, yes, I want like this 40 minutes. Yes, that's awesome. Working one on one. Does that work for you? They're like, yes. They're like, okay, we're in a big gym and there's a lot of stuff going on. Does that resonate with you? And they're like, this is awesome. And then it's just like, so by the time you make the offer, they've said yes so many times during the interview that they're just like, yeah, this makes no sense. Why would I not sign up for this? And then so now that you have transparency, they come in, they start working with you, and they're like, this is exactly what you laid out for me. Is that kind of like what you guys are feeling on that onboarding process?
Right, exactly. And the other piece of that is that we want to help them grow. It's not all about just how can we get something out of you. It's how can we help you develop in ways that you want to develop.
Oh, interesting. Nice. So more like personal, professional development, career
Exactly.
extension, kind of what that looks like. Awesome.
So in a recent interview of a new grad, I said, what are you looking to get out of your career? At the end of this, your 40, whatever years, what would it look like for you to look at it and say, that was a successful career. I'm very happy that I did that. What would you like to get out of that? Is it clinically? Do you want to become the best at some area of physical therapy, or do you want to build, your business mindset, and maybe are you looking to maybe someday open your own business?
Yeah, like business mentorship. Yeah.
What is it that you want to do? Do you want to become the best manual therapist in the world?
What
So
do
we're
most
trying
people
to,
say? I would love to know. Like, what do most PTs come in? They're like, most of them probably no clue because they've probably never been asked that question by someone. They're like, oh,
right.
good question. But so when you start answering, like, what do you typically get? What, are they, is it more clinical side? Is it more business side? What do you
Yes,
see?
definitely clinical. I can tell you that a lot of them, they express a little bit of interest. They don't hop on the idea about learning more about the business side of things necessarily.
Maybe a director, but that the buck stops there. Like opening a clinic's not okay. I got you.
Yes, I think they like the idea of leadership positions,
Yeah.
but not necessarily like I want to open my own thing or I want to, run this clinic necessarily. I don't know. It just seems like it's definitely more clinical.
No, that's great. They just want to be the best clinician, continue learning, CEUs, all
hmm
that good stuff. Yeah,
We've gotten a lot of new grads, and so a lot of them don't exactly know yet.
that's what I mean. They probably look at you like deer in headlights. Like, I have no idea, man. Like, I
Yeah,
just, I
it's
just got here. It's like,
it's
it's
more like I just want to kind of learn what I like, and
yeah,
can you offer me a wide variety of patients so that I can kind of feel it out and learn, become a
interesting.
better
Okay,
PT, and see, what my interests are? The answer is yes.
we could do all that. So, which
Yeah.
is interesting. And those that are kind of listening right now, Cameron's in the middle of Ohio, and he was able to grow from himself, admin, first provider, to now he's got how many clinicians you have at the first location now? Because you're looking to hire another one. So, is this four heading into five or three heading into four? Where are you at now?
So we've got 3 full-time PTs and a full-time PTA.
Okay, so four.
Um,
So
and
four
I'm not
full
including
times.
myself, and I'm not including myself. So,
Great. Thank you.
because I'm out of treatment.
So there you go. Let's go.
Yeah, and that's a weird feeling. I used to include myself in that number, but now I
Well,
don't because
we'll talk about that
yeah,
because now you got idle hands and you got to figure out what to do. So idle hands usually like result in the owner coming in and messing things up. But now you're like, no, I need to continue. I need to continue to grow. So I'll just put my time, energy, and focus over on this new project. So you're at
and
okay.
that
So
was
you're
the
at
other
four full
piece of
time.
why I wanted to open another one is that I felt like I was almost stepping on toes trying to do their jobs, even though
Yeah.
they know how to do their jobs, because I felt
Mhm.
like I needed to be more involved with I've trained them well. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and for those listening, so Cameron was in your very typical producer role, right? So he was it's a very cliche thing to say, but people always say like working in the business versus on it. And for me, there's like three levels before you could start working truly on your business because your business has to do two things. And the two questions that you should always be asking yourself is can my business sustain without me there? And the other question is can my business grow without me there? And right now, like there's no one opening a clinic for Cameron. He has to go and now learn the skill set of like, how do I open a second location without me in it? The first one sucks because you were the one that like owns, you were the one that started. Then you had to go get your first PT or your admin. And then you had to go and get three or four levels between you and your business before we could even pull you out. And now he's
Right.
out of treatment and he's sitting there and now the next order of operation is like, well, how do I put sustainment behind me? So he's looking right now at some of his admins and some of his clinical team and who's the office manager, who's the clinical director, and let's get clinic number one sustained. Because the cool part about this is that eventually he'll go from, I'm not treating patients, which is a great feeling. Was that a good feeling, Cameron? Not treating any
Oh, it is
patients?
every day.
No. All right. Now so I always tell people like if you think not treating patients is cool, wait till your staff hires, onboards, and trains people. Like it's different, right? So now are you at that level yet where your team is hiring, onboarding, and training, or are you still pretty tied into the hiring section of it?
No, so in terms of administrative staff, they're
Yeah.
doing.
Okay, so admin staff does their front office hiring their self. You're still hiring on the
Mhm.
clinical side, correct?
Yes, but
Okay.
I should say yes and no, because what I'm doing is I'm getting my staff very involved with this one, because this is really the first one that I'm trying to take my hands off of a little bit so that,
Yeah, yeah.
they're more involved. And so I literally have had one of my PTs call the new applicant and
Let's
speak
go.
with them for a while. And they talked about an
Yeah,
hour, I guess. And then I had the applicant come in and actually look through our clinic and meet with us because they're from a while, they're from a little
sure.
bit
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
And so my office manager slash PTA was in there and they participated heavily in that conversation. And so, they're now starting to see what that part looks like, right? Like how they
That's cool.
can
Your
kind
your
of
PTA, yeah, your clinical director. Yeah, great.
PTA and then also the PT who I had talked to her.
Awesome.
Sort of they're getting an idea for what that looks like. And then I guess the biggest thing now is the actual logistics of it, right?
Sure.
Like the
Now you're
Indeed,
on the
the
why. You're on the how do I do this versus like, the strategy side of it. So it's like the tactical
right.
stuff. It's just like, do I have them post? Do I have them that? It's like, yes, you just whatever you were
Hmm.
doing, you're going to start to train them on this is how you do it now. And because what happens is they're going to be like, oh, well, that's Cameron's hire. I wouldn't hire that person for my team, but Cameron did that hiring. It's just like, no, no, you meet these people. The only thing I need to do is I'm going to come in and do like a little like core value culture company overview interview. Like this is where we're at. This is our big vision, right? So you mentioned that a lot of these people are just trying to get into clinical positions or whatever. They don't want the big, but there are a couple of your A players that might want leadership or whatever that looks like, which is usually the case. Like 10% of our employees have an itch, and then 90% just want to show up, treat patients, do their notes, and go home, which is totally fine.
Hmm.
And when we're looking at this thing, it's just like, how do I create that vision big enough for my most kind of like, hey, my ambitious employee, they could fit their career inside of this thing. So that's where you just come in as your role is just like, how do I just meet with a couple people, make sure they're not serial killers, and then we approve the work there, and then here you go, back to you. Go ahead and hire on board and get these guys trained. We're good, and you just give the approval, like yes, we could pay that and we could offer that, and we're good. So that's awesome, man. So now you're moving kind of still in a little bit that level two where you're that manager, middle management unifier role. But eventually you're going to get to the point where, other than the company stamp of approval, there's not going to be much there on the hiring side, which is cool. And then you kind of move into this communicator role where you're starting to learn it now. The communicator operator kind of go hand in hand, but communicators more like, I got to negotiate deals. I got to go and I got to, find leases and contracts. I got to make physician referral connections, networking. You're kind of using your mouth to make your money. You're teaching your leadership team, and you're kind of now in this role, which is interesting because you could have one conversation for an hour and make more money than you used to do working 100 hours with one patient one on one. So, but there's a lot of idle time. and you're sitting there like, what should I be doing? So how are you
Right.
kind of managing and kind of evolving into this weird role of like, you used to be a producer, 70-hour work weeks, stressed out of my mind. And then now I got some leadership between me and my producers. And now I'm kind of sitting here like, this is nice. Like, how do you like, what does that feel like?
I can't say that it's something that's happened overnight. I can't say that I'm totally adapted to it yet.
It took like, I don't know, 5 years. How long did that take him?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, just
And
so those that are listening, it wasn't like he opened and now here he is. So when did you start your business? When did you start?
yeah, yeah. So I started in 2017
Okay, 27.
and
Let's go, man.
it was just me. I mean, a lot's happened in that time, but I'll say it was really just me about 2 years ago, up until about 2 years ago, right?
This
I
is
had
after
some,
COVID. Like you did
this is after
COVID
COVID.
by yourself and then now, okay, okay, great.
I had some staff. There was a little bit of a situation there, but it was under control now. But at the end of the day, it ended up being I wanted to pull it back and really make the business something that I wanted it to be instead of just trying to please others exclusively, right?
Yeah. I love
You
that.
don't want to
That's
feel
probably
like
where
a
your
stranger.
transparency comes from now. Yeah, that
Right,
makes sense.
right.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I got you.
Right. Yeah. Nobody wants to feel like a stranger in their own business. Right. When employees
Mm.
aren't necessarily coachable, you kind of have to take drastic steps sometimes, even if you don't want to necessarily, even
Oh,
if
you
it's
do
going to
some
be,
weird stuff. Yeah, it's
even if it's going to be painful, like you're going to
yeah,
have to take on a lot of work on your own. So I ended up going back and taking on the caseload of two people onto just myself, reducing from two main locations to one. And then I ended up doing a lot of the billing and stuff in that time too, as I'm trying to build out this location. So that was a big process. I mean, that was a lot. And then once I finally hired really what I started with was a PTA because I just needed somebody in here.
right. You just need a helper. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And then my wife also helped. She actually quit her other job working for the YMCA and came and helped for a little bit. But yeah, so then, I started working with you guys and I learned some systems. I'm telling you, like doing it for 5 years by myself was way more painful than the 1 year, 1.5 years, or whatever it's been to go from just myself to it'll be five full-time providers in a third of the time just because I have some guidance. So for anybody who's listening, it's worth the investment.
Thanks, man. Well, obviously that's not what this is for, but at the same time, I appreciate it. But the cool part about that is that I have a little kind of quote, little mantra is that if we're not going to take credit for or ownership of people's failures, we can't take credit for people's success because I mean, heck, man, we work with hundreds of owners now, and there's some owners, everybody has the same information, like everybody. Like it's just like you join and here's the stuff and you get it and you get your guidance. And there's some people that take the information and they crush it, like yourself. And then there's some people that like you log in and you see the back end. It's like they didn't even log into the
Mm,
material, or they're not even on calls, or they're not even on this. They're not even active in Slack. So it's just like so because of that. What happened with you is you just got permission to just be able to focus and know that like if you just did this next step, it was going to work. I think a lot of times as owners, what we typically see is the hesitation to like, am I doing the right thing to move my business forward? Or is this going to set me back another 6 months? So then people just don't take action. What I loved about Cameron is when, he came in and, it was him. It was his wife. It was his PTA. He was doing billing by himself. He's doing all this thing. I think you guys were still one on one for an hour, doing like
yes.
$95 reimbursement at one on one for an hour, trying to make this thing work.
Right.
And, we were like, this is what you need to do. You need to do this, 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 and this. And, I would come back to the well here and I'd be like, check in and see if there's any water in there. And Cameron's just like, yeah, did all that. What's next? It's like, whoa, okay. All right. Well, all right. Well, now we got to do this, this, and this. And then I'll come back in and check. And Cameron's just like, well, I did this, this, and this. I got a little issue here, maybe a little billing issue, maybe RPV issue, maybe whatever. It's just like, just trust the process. I felt like, I forget what NBA team was. They always said trust the process, but then they never won a championship. So it's a weird thing to say. But it's just like, hey, man, just trust it and you'll push through. And every time I went back to check on Cameron, he did what he was supposed to do, but then he was already starting to do the next thing. And a lot of owners just don't have that. I always ask a question. It's just like, are you a PT who happens to be an owner, or are you an owner who happens to be a PT? Like, I don't know what you identify as, but I could tell from where I'm sitting that you're an owner who happens to be a PT man, which is cool. So I appreciate, the shout out, but at the same time, like, we just don't take credit for people's stuff because it's just like, you're the one that took action on it, which is cool to see.
I
And
think that
you-
was the
yeah.
biggest that was the biggest change really is what you just referred to is I felt like I was a PT who happened to be the owner of the business
Mm,
and changed from that to having a more of an owner business mindset.
yeah.
Uh,
Your business runs a little bit better when you do that, doesn't it?
Tends to, yeah.
When you
But it
I don't
sounds
need
obvious looking at it now, but
Yeah, it is
when
obvious.
when you're in it,
Yeah, if it was easy, everybody would do it. We talked a little bit earlier about like working in the business versus on. Until you're out of treatment, you're not working on the business, right? So you're in the business and you're treating. Let's talk about that in a second. Because I feel like when owners have to get out of treatment, it's almost like you got to kind of like kill a part of you that's been a part of you for so long. 7 years of PT school, treating patients. You get all the high fives, the accolades. Cameron, oh my God, you helped me out so much. Like you're a lifesaver. You do like it's just like a positive reinforcement loop all the freaking time. And then, you have to shed that identity of like no longer being a producer, which by the way, you were doing some admin stuff, better job, better man than me because I knew off the top of my head I'm not doing any admin stuff. I need to hire somebody. So and then you were even doing billing stuff again, better man than me because I was like I need to outsource that. So it's just like
I did as quick as I could, but yeah.
yeah, I know because you get in there and you're like, what are all these mod CCI edit? What is all this clearinghouses? Just I need some help. And then for you then to be able to now transition into an owner kind of role here, and this is why I love this podcast because we bring people on going through these transitions and you hear revenue and all-time highs and visit like cool, awesome, good. That's expected, right? As you go through the levels. But what I really love to get into is who you become as you go through this process. So, what does Cameron 2.0 look like these days, man? Like, are you a little less stressed? Are you a little less anxious? Are you maybe you're working out a little bit? I don't know. What does this level look like compared to like a year ago?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think it's a huge contrast. The person that was doing what I was doing before, even over the last, 5 years before I changed the way I was doing things with your help, is that I was chronically stressed. I mean, stressed isn't the word, it was beyond that.
It's a pressure that you don't even, and I get emotional about it because I've felt it numerous times. And this is why we kind of do this is just so people don't feel it, but Cameron had to feel it and he felt it for an extended period of time, which sucks because usually I like to do it for just a temporary period of time. But it's a pressure that most people it would destroy most people. Yeah. It's
How did
just
you handle that?
how did I handle it, man? That's a great question. Well, identifying first what was the constraint that was causing it, and I realized that it was my inputs were resulting in the outputs that I didn't want. So, that's where
I
I'm
like that.
yeah, I'm passionate about like I need to change this. Like, and I think most people could blame. I always look internal now versus external. Like if something happened, it's a me issue versus external. Even if there's things around me externally that caused it. Like it's easy to blame others. It's easy to blame the APTA for not showing up and getting higher reimbursements. It's easy to blame a partnership that maybe wasn't going as well. It's easy, it's easy, it's easy. But at the end of the day, it's just like I just wasn't the owner I needed to be
Mhm.
and because of that my output showed, right? You're not broke, you're not out of shape, you're not lonely because of other people.
Right.
it's like you caused that, and what do we need to do differently to maybe go in a different direction? And it's the kind of the insanity thing that it's just like if you do the same thing expecting different results, it's insanity. So it's just like, well, okay, well, my current inputs are giving me this output, which is depression, anxiety, frustration. My wife was, God bless her, she stayed with me, but I don't know why. But it's just like, it's just one of those things that it's just like not good outputs. Okay, well, if I want different outputs, I need different inputs, and had to do a lot of stuff, soul searching to figure out what that would look like. So, yeah, man,
Sure.
yeah, focusing on the wrong stuff for sure. How
Yeah.
about
Well, I
you? How
think
about you? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, I think you hit on an interesting point. When you make decisions based out of fear or emotion, you're not confident in those decisions. And so every decision you make feels like it could be the end of the world. You
Worst
know,
case scenario.
and,
Yeah.
and of course you think it's
Yeah.
going to be the greatest thing in the world, but you don't necessarily know because you feel like you're just flipping switches with the lights off,
Yeah. It's
unless you
a
have
great
those
analogy.
metrics and you understand the business side of things. And I didn't. And so I was constantly stressed because I was making decisions based out of fear. They weren't giving me the results that I wanted. And so I was frustrated, right? And then I would maybe blame someone else for those problems, even though at the end of the day, it was my problem,
Sure. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you can blame others, but they're not thinking about you. So,
Right.
so
So, and,
it's an
but
interesting thing.
the other interesting thing is that during that time, I started my business right after my son was born. And he was very colicky and he had chronic ear infections and things. So that was a rough start. I then went through a divorce and
Yeah.
then COVID happened.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. A
during
lot
that
going on.
beginning,
Yeah.
in that first
Because
5 years,
why not? Like,
that
why can't we just start a business? And that was your first son, correct, Cameron? Because you
yes.
have a second child now too, correct?
Yes.
So that was
Yeah, I can
first one.
say
So a lot going on. So it's like,
yeah. Well, now that things are where they're at, it's a lot better. I have a lot more space in my brain to be able to like be present at home. You
interesting.
know, when you're first starting a business, I mean those first few months, you know, first year or so, at least the way that I did it when you don't have any sort of guidance, you know, it just takes up every thought you have, you know, every moment. Or it did for me because I wanted it to succeed so badly that I put every second I had into it, you know, and of course that started to affect the relationships around me, you know, and so yeah, what was the question?
I don't know, man. I don't know. All I know is
Yeah,
that's good stuff because it's just one of those things. Is just we sit there and everybody, even the listeners on here, that we all have our kind of like our the hero's true journeys story. Well, hopefully you guys have it. Where it's just like my life was rough and I had no money and I hit rock bottom and it's just like, but now look at me. And it's just like people love that. It's a great story. You always want to show your scars versus your open wounds, kind of thing. But at the same time, it is there. And I get emotional about it because like, 2015, there's a picture of me taking over the business and my daughter, who's like 8 months old, is sitting on my lap and I'm signing the papers. And, I signed the papers and, happiest day of my life. I'm like, I'm going to be a business owner. This is going to be amazing. And, it's kind of like, hyperbole, but it's one of those things that was like, that was like the last time I really kind of got to be in the moment and hold her for like 3 to 5 years. And I worked like a dog, man, for 5 years. And and not only that, I did home health to supplement because the business wasn't, getting enough coming through to,
same.
I had to do home health. I'm owner of freaking 2, 3 locations doing home visits because all this, hey, that's why I'm very passionate about like, don't open other clinics unless you do this, and that. Like, because, all that stuff you could open and it's just status. And, I'm working other jobs. I'm running Facebook ads for owners because I'm trying to make other money to try to supplement 75, 80 hour work weeks, like just not seeing my family. And it sucks because like my first daughter, we have a good relationship now, but it's not as good as my second daughter in my relationship because I was present. And I love that word that you said, you're present, because even being home and being in the room, but you're doing work stuff on your phone, it's not being present,
Right.
and it's just in when you're there with them and you're playing with them, but you're consumed up here with like, I need to do this, I need to file payroll, how am I going to afford this? It cripples me when I have money constraints and thinking about that. So thanks. I just want to just thanks for sharing, man. I don't know where we were going question wise, but I just it's just know that it's just
Yeah,
like, yeah.
right. But yeah, so the good news is now, even though I was not necessarily in a good place in those days,
Hmm.
you know, my son is still my son, you know, and so
Yeah.
we've come a long way since then, you know, really since I realized it was a problem, you know, and realized that I needed to get the business under control, either get it under control or put it down because,
Yeah.
you know, the way it was, I was losing touch with my family, right? I didn't want to not have a good relationship with my son. And now I feel like we have a great relationship. Because when I'm
And
home, I'm spending
that's
time with
huge to
him,
hear.
spending time with her, with my wife and my daughter, and there. It's not to say that there's no stress,
There's
but
always
I'm able
stress.
to.
Family stress now. You just have typical family stress. You don't have like
Right,
I think we're gonna lose the house stress. It's just
right. No, it's more like baby's
yeah,
teething right now, which she
yeah,
is.
yeah. Well, and how is that? Because now, with because you got remarried, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, recently too, which is awesome. Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you.
So how is this impacted her? Like, just you guys have, you got this new Cameron 2.0 showing up and, cause she was there when things were rough and, you know,
Hmm.
and I've had those conversations. You just got to trust me. It's going to be so much. I have the blueprint. Like we're like, just trust me. And you're like, okay. And now all of a sudden it's just like, hey, like you're doing some cool stuff. I'm sure that feels awesome. But how has that also impacted her?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, like you said, she saw it when it was at its worst,
Yeah.
really. And so, I think she's told me many times that she's proud of me, and I think that's something that I really needed to hear.
Yeah. Most
You
guys
know,
do. By the women out there in the listening to this, most dudes need just a little like I appreciate you. That's our love language, by the way, if you haven't noticed. So it's just
oh,
like
it so is.
yeah. It gives us like a literally like 3 to 6 months of like one, I'm proud of you. Thanks for like showing up for the family and doing all you do. Like easily 6 months of momentum. Donezo.
Seriously, yeah,
It's like
yeah.
that.
I don't think people realize how much it affects you, and it affects you even more. Well, maybe when you don't hear it, and
Yeah, because you're not hearing it now.
it tears you up when that
Yeah, because
happens.
when you treated patients, you
Um,
heard it all the time. Hey, yeah, thank you. I appreciate you. I love. Hey, thanks so much. Oh my God, you're the best. You're a miracle worker. Love those hands. And now all of a sudden,
right, right,
you just get all the credit for all the things that go wrong. Hey, that's my fault. We
right,
shouldn't have done that. That system, my fault. Hey, it's not really her issue. I didn't train her properly. So, you're just taking all the stuff, even if it's not your stuff. And
right.
you might get a boss's day letter and people are like, hey, I appreciate you if you even get that. But at the end of the day, that's why like you try to do these things and be like, hey man, you're crushing it, you're doing awesome, like you're great. Here's all your flowers because you don't get them. It's a very lonely place at the top. But I'll tell you what, I'd rather be alone at the top than alone at the bottom.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh God. Yeah. And that's where I was. And
100%.
yeah. But yeah, coming back to how my wife is feeling, I think she's very happy because we do have a newborn, right? She's only seven
Yeah.
months old.
Only 7. That's awesome, man.
And so throughout, her life, I've been able to be there, so to help her on the days, because, she's right now she's a stay-at-home mom. I think she'd like to go back to work just to kind of have her own sort of thing and kind of.
Let's see if we got her. She's got her roll over there. We're back on track. Come on now. Don't turn a good asset away, but it could be
Yeah,
good, it
well,
could be
yeah,
bad. Sometimes husband and wife stuff works all awesome, and sometimes you guys just need your own separate careers. So it depends on the dynamic for sure.
and we tried working together and it just wasn't working out.
Yeah,
So
she helped in the beginning, and now she's gonna go do her own thing. So that's
right, exactly. But the important thing is that, I've been able to come home and help with the baby if I don't have a busy day necessarily and everything seems to be going okay here. And I don't do this every day, but like I might take a day and say, hey, why don't you go, visit a friend or something, or go relax, go
yeah,
take a day where you just go
self
walk,
care.
or,
My wife
go to
taught
the
go
park.
do your self care stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna
And these are
come
things
in.
I
I'm
couldn't
gonna
have done
take the big.
before.
Yeah, no, it's important because I think a lot of times moms just have the kids all the time. Even my
Hmm.
wife with my kids, and mine is 9 and 6. And it's just like, can we just leave mom alone for a minute? Could she go to the bathroom in peace? Like, just
Right.
chill. She's gonna go take a bath. Just don't go in the room. Like I have to lock doors sometimes and be like, come here. Or my wife is just like, I need a minute. I'm like, I'm taking you out of the home. Let's go get ice cream. Let's do whatever. We're taking them out because it is
Yes.
like little magnets. It is crazy.
Right.
Awesome, man. So you get that time. You get that time with the family now. And honestly, thanks for sharing. And those that are listening right now, like, if you're in a position where you're still treating or you have 101 things going on, just know that your life could significantly be different in a very short period of time. like Cameron was talking about just, his baby's now 7 months old. And, he was in the weeds just 8 months ago. And it's now all of a sudden he's at the point where you're kind of like going through it and you hit the outer bands of the storm. And then you're kind of heading into the hurricane. And then you're kind of in the calm of the storm, which kind of feels nice. You get a little taste of that. And then there's going to be some things that you need to fix on the back end, get your leadership team in place, whatever that looks like. And, now you sit here and you got time and it's just like, well, what do I do with all this time? So in Cameron starting to mention like, hey, I'm going to go open a second location because, the whole principle, if you're not growing, you're what? Then you got to start, your A players will start leaving and you're going to start dealing with stuff. So we got to keep growing this thing. And, I think that that's just kind of our message to you guys. If you're listening, like, hey, if you're in the weeds a little bit, just know the different inputs. Look around, what's your biggest constraints? Is it hiring? Is it new patients? Is it, maybe you? And, for you, Cameron, I'll go back to this and we'll kind of start looking to wrap up a little bit here. When you have Cameron 1.0, stressed, anxious, worried about everything, and I'm only speaking for myself, there's probably a lot of staff members, a lot of friends, a lot of family probably didn't want to be around me, and that's why like things just got super difficult in my life because I was trying to do all these things. And like, I know myself personally, I don't want to hang out with negative people. So if I'm kind of showing up as this entity, lower energy, and then I go over here now to this 2.0 version where there's more excitement. I'm giving recognition, I'm giving praise, I'm giving kudos, and, I'm coaching people up. Now people want to come work for me in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. Right. It's just different. So could you speak on that a little bit now that you're kind of like attracting different things in your life, or, is that kind of what it feels like? Or, walk us through that a little bit because I definitely struggle with that when what's wrong? Why don't people want to stay and work here? Now all of a sudden, like I become someone different and it just seems easier.
Right. And that's a difficult question because my staff really, I don't think were necessarily dissatisfied with things or, I do think that maybe they felt
Yeah, that's because
distance
you
from
didn't
me.
tell them how things were going.
That's because exactly because
You
they didn't
suffer in
necessarily see
silence like
behind
that
the
if you're stubborn.
curtain, right? And so, um, but I can say, and I don't want it to come across as I was I was awful and now I'm 100% terrific because I'm still learning.
Yeah,
I'm still struggling with certain things, nothing like what I was, but I'm still learning to be more relaxed, that
I can
I
tell,
don't
man.
have
Your
to
your
stress
demeanor even
out.
on this thing is just it's just cool as a cucumber. And
Thanks.
for those that don't know Cameron was the same way. Even when the Rome was burning around him, he was stressed, but it was never like a 911 kind of like, oh my god, we need to talk. Like this is just like I don't. It's always just like, hey, so here's what's going on, and how do we figure this out? Because I'm really stressed, and I'm like, okay, well I can't really tell. But just very emotional control is what I would use for to describe. You have a very good emotional control, not too high, not too low, just Cameron, which
Well,
is your
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
cool as a
That's
cucumber. That's it.
that's good. That's good in a business owner to for people to perceive that.
Yeah, no, your perception is great, but again, you were probably suffering in silence a little bit, and there is some merit to like, hey, we're not doing what we need to do, and here's some of the proof to back that up. I need some
Exactly.
I need some added help around here, but that's awesome,
So,
man. Yeah,
so
yeah.
so what it is now is I'm learning, right? I'm seeing, okay, well, I don't have to micromanage my staff now that I've trained them well and they're able to do the job. And so now I'm able to look back and reflect on my own self for the first time in, I don't know, since my son was born, or maybe before that, because I was in PT school,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And before that I was an undergrad, and before that I was in high school. You don't know what that is when you're in high school.
Yeah, I mean, you learn all these things. You went from a high schooler to college and you become these different people, and now you're just becoming a
Yeah,
business
and
owner, which is awesome,
and
man.
s- I feel like I'm really having the first chance in my life to look at my life and look at myself and look at my relationships and say, here's what I want, here's what I have, how can I get to where I want? And so that is an interesting thing because having the child, like the 7 month old, I'm trying to find this balance between how much of my time do I want to spend with her and with my wife and with my son? How much of my time do I want to spend here or trying to open another location? You know what I mean? And so I'm really in this
Ah,
sort of
yeah.
interesting situation where I want to open a second location, but I don't want it to be this task that becomes so big that I'm completely enveloped by it. And
Hmm.
so that's where I'm really putting my time into training my staff well,
Yes.
so that they can really help me to open it and so that I will oversee it, but they will really be doing a lot of the like credentialing and hiring and a lot of these things that we've talked about that they need to be able to do for me to be able to do my job.
Yeah. If you guys recall, maybe about like 20 minutes ago, I made the comment. I said, now you have to learn the skill set of opening a second location without you in it. And because Cameron right now has a taste of what freedom looks like. And is this a matter of being in the center of the hurricane here in the eye wall and everything kind of feels nice? But now we're just heading to the backside of the storm where now we're going to get into higher winds and stuff to then get freedom again just in a couple months? Or is this one of those things that, no, we made it through the whole storm and now we're just going to make sure that we keep systemizing, put people in place that aren't named Cameron Dennis? Because, if you go and open a second location and you are the one that's going to be treating in that location, you might as well just go over to clinic number one and just light it on fire. Because it's just like, because it will burn down so quickly from what you just built, because those people still need Cameron. They still need, the recognition, the praise, the coaching, the mentorship. They still need that. And that's why it's just like for clinic number two, it's just like, well, how do I get two providers and an admin in there as quickly as possible to be able to get this thing profitable? Now we could just figure out leadership and stuff from that. And Cameron, you don't even need to start a second location with a clinical director or office manager. It's just like, let's just get, some people over there and then let's see who kind of rises to the surface. And when I have three or four providers, then I could pick somebody, and you don't have to. I think a lot of people, because you could manage from the top because you're out of treatment and you're here, you just go over, but you're not going to be that's, 40 hours a week working. You could then have your maker days and your builder days and stuff, which is awesome. But I
Right.
love that. For anybody listening right now, the fear of success is huge for most people. They're like, well, if I grow, that means more of my time. And growth should never be tied to your time, right? Because that's why we said, can your business sustain without Cameron Dennis? And could your business grow without Cameron Dennis? And I gave you guys an open loop, and I'll close it here. I said, number one, when you're out of treatment, the second best thing is when your team hires on boards and trains and you're not involved in that, other than just stamp of approval, because the owner should always know who's getting hired for their company because they're liable for that. Then the third thing, which is probably the best thing that not a lot of people talk about, is when you have someone else opening locations for you. That's when it gets fun, because now your business is able to sustain and your business is then able to grow without you there. And it's cool. You can get there. There are levels to the game, but at the same time, the next hardest level you have to master here, Cameron, is opening location number two without you in it, man. So I love that. And I love that that's your, because now you have a why and you're going to hold on to that why. And it's not going to, people are going to try to get, hey, nice try. And you're just going to kind of give it that little Heisman. Hey, nice try, but I'm not going back in a tree. Hey, Cameron, can we open up
Sure,
your
right.
schedule? No. It's like, it's just
No,
like,
you
oh, I
cannot.
didn't tell you. I didn't resubmit for my license this year. So I don't even have a license anymore. That's what I tell people. Just pretend you don't even have a license. Can't even treat. No liability insurance.
Yeah.
I got no liability insurance. Can't treat. I'm not covered. So
Did
awesome,
you
man.
do that?
Well, I hypothetically, I would tell people, I'd be like, I just say, hey, I don't have a license. They're like, you have a license. I'm like, I pretend I don't have a license, or
Pretend I don't have a license. Yeah,
pretend I
right.
don't have a license, or pretend I don't have liability insurance. Just that was my compliance person hit me with that one day when we were talking about discovery visits. She's like, hey, imagine you have no liability insurance. What would you do during a discovery session? I was like, gotcha. Makes sense. So she's like,
Hmm.
yeah, that's what you do, because it's just and I was like, okay, note it. So I always tell my staff, pretend I have no license. So don't call me to go back into treatment. And I would rather lose a day of visits versus going back into treatment, because one becomes two, two becomes four, four becomes eight, eight becomes you're back on the schedule and you're off to the race.
Right.
Yeah. Unless it's
Yeah, I
on
like
my
that.
terms and I could plan for it. Yeah. Cause you're now producer, 101 for an hour, you make $100 a visit. That's what your time's worked. For a lot of owners out there, just take the total revenue that your company did for the year and divide that by 52.14 weeks and then divide it by 40. And that's your hourly rate. So, a lot of you guys that are doing $1 million a year in revenue, your hourly rate is going to be almost 500 bucks plus. So it's just like, if I wanted to do an 8 hour day and I wanted to throw away, 4,000 bucks to go treat patients, I don't know, because you need my skill
Hmm.
set to be doing higher level activities. And that's where I think a lot of times people, like, you want me to go do a deposition? It's 500 bucks. I'll come to court and I'll do a deposition, but it's going to cost 500 bucks. They're like, 500 bucks. I don't even charge that. Well, then don't have me come and do a deposition. That's all. But I know
Right.
what my time's worth for sure. So awesome stuff, man. Well, to wrap up here, listeners either below you, kind of one or two providers trying to get out of treatment, or maybe those that forgot what it looks like to be at this level. Maybe they're a couple clinics in and kind of losing their passion a little bit, or whatever that looks like. Just what's your overall advice for the rehab CEOs out there in the space?
What's my advice for anyone?
Yeah, just anybody listening, man. So just kind of take us home here.
Don't forget about what the most important things in your life are as you're trying to grow your business. Don't lose sight of those things. So everything else you can grow, everything else you can build, 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 and you can work. But don't lose sight of the things that are most important to you, or you will lose them.
Or you will lose them. I love that, man. Yeah. You said something, you don't know the time. I think it said that 90% of the time you spend with your kids happens before the age of 18.
Hmm.
So there you go. So time. We could all make businesses, we could all make more money, but we can't make time. So
That's right.
so once you get it, hold it, keep on to it, and make sure you spend your time with the people you love. So I love that, man. Well, Cameron, thanks for joining us today. This has been awesome. So hopefully that inspired some folks that have, are starting their business, looking to get out of treatment. Maybe you were on the fence a little bit about like, hey, I don't know if I want to get out of treatment. Well, Cameron was in treatment, got out of treatment, and not just his business, but his life is better because of it. And now he's able to transition into the next role, that communicator role, before he moves into the next position here, the operator. So, Cameron, man, I'm looking forward to hearing 2.0 or 3.0, where you get a third
That
location. So, our second location. So, let's go, man. So awesome,
sounds
awesome
great.
stuff. So, thanks for joining us today, Cameron. Appreciate your time, man. And just best of luck in everything you do, man. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank
See
you
you,
for
brother.
everything that you do.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate it. Story's just getting written, man. We still got a lot more to do. So
Amen.
awesome stuff, brother. See you, Cameron. See
All
you, buddy.
right. See you later.